a few answers back, you said you don't communicate through WhatsApp chats only. You also talk. Who are you referring to? Who would you talk to?
I called Sergeant Gosi to explain, to say I was with these two individuals that I grew with.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to know who you were referring to. Yes, Mr. Chaskalson.
Well, why did you want to know if Mnisi and Sipho were telling the truth when they said those companies came from the EFF?
They are name dropping the CFO, they are name dropping the EFF. And I don't know them as members of the EFF.
Why is it relevant whether those companies came from the EFF or not?
People name drop, they tarnish people's name. I mean, you know that, since this appear, people have been, reporting false things about the Mr. Malema having companies and so forth, while they are not from him.
What would you have done if the CFO reported to you that, yes, these companies are from the EFF? I've been told these companies are from the EFF.
I just wanted to establish the link of those people. I know them from SOSCO, COSAS, and so forth, and to say, where are they? I know them as members of the ANC, and if they've shifted now to the EFF, what is happening? These are youngsters that I grew with. They are old now. They were youngsters I grew up with.
Deputy Commissioner, you say these people wanted you to help them, or
not made any mistake as far as the custody chain or the handling of the exhibits or serial numbers contained. The court finds him and all the above then as stated credible, reliable and truthful. The extent to which the court had been impressed by Colonel Ngodleka was further evident from the finding that he meets the criteria, in fact exceeds the required criteria in his thoroughness, and he can be, or is mentioned by this court to be not only an expert witness but a super qualified expert witness. That is the conclusion regarding Colonel Ngodleka. This evaluation was in turn projected by the court to the rest of the state witnesses, even though there was no factual basis to do so. This in itself indicates a material misdirection by the court in its approach to the evidence of the state witnesses and the assessment of their credibility. In contradistinction, the court held that the defense witnesses, including Mr. de Klerk, were defensive and at stages argumentative. This is further borne out by the comparative analysis by the court of the evidence of Mr. de Klerk as compared to Colonel Ngodleka, which was found to fall short and only be noted as mediocre. This biased approach to the testimony of the defense witnesses is further illustrated by the approach adopted towards the accused. The fact that he had stated that Mr. Mavundla should have been charged was utilized to discredit him. Additionally, he was found to have evaded many questions that had warranted a reply, and the court held that it became evident that the replies were entertaining, but however the pertinent questions asked remained unanswered. He was further criticized for relying upon the viral footage whereas nobody else was. Having held that the court had to establish whether the version presented by the defense was reasonably possibly true, regard was had to the statement in cross-examination that the firearm had been in Gauteng. In this regard, the court held, and I quote, "Now as to what happened and where it was kept, no explanation was provided. It begs the question, dealing with circumstantial evidence, that what does the firearm being booked out to Mr. Mavundla in effect equate to that specific firearm is booked out to him for whenever it is needed for him or by him. Since clearly it does not mean it needs to be on his body since he left it in Gauteng. In doing so, the court appears to have lost sight of the fact that this statement had been made by the co-accused counsel in cross-examination. There was no basis to be reasonably possibly true. Then we say this misapplication of the onus is further evident from the court having in its concluding remarks confirmed the two cardinal rules that require the inference sought to be drawn to be consistent with all the proved facts and to exclusion of every reasonable inference from them, save the one sought to be drawn. This could never be the case in the absence of any objective corroboration that one would have expected to be present at the scene, such as damage to property, injury to people, or at the very least an expression of fear by anybody from the many people that have been in attendance at the celebration. And finally, in relation to the conviction, Your Worship, what he says, at the very least, it cannot be said that now the court might find differently or have a different assessment of all the evidence within this trial. Consequently, it is respectfully submitted that the accused is not only a reasonable, but a good prospect of success on appeal. This application for leave to appeal against the convictions ought to be granted. In relation to sentence, Your Worship, we submit the following. Say that the sentence imposed by this Honourable Court is startlingly inappropriate to the extent that it induces a sense of shock. We say further, due regard being had to the prevailing circumstance at the time of the commission of the offences, and more specifically that they all relate to the same event in a very limited period of time that did not exceed 1 minute, all of the counts ought to have been taken as one for the purpose of sentence. There is no need or basis to impose separate sentences in respect of each charge, as this court did. We say further, insufficient regard was had to the personal circumstances of the accused. Most significantly, he is a 45-year-old first offender who was 37 years old when these offences were committed. He has not been convicted of any other offences in the interim. Additionally, he is married, he has 3 children and a wife to support. He is in full-time employment. He is also involved in community projects and regarded as an asset to the community. There is no basis to contend that he is a danger to society, thus ought to be removed from society. In this regard, Your Worship, I wish to highlight that no regard is had to the fact that he has led a blameless life during the duration of this trial, and that he hasn't committed any other offence, and this is not taken into account in the sentence that was imposed. Furthermore, when it came to his community project, Your Worship questioned the social worker who testified, Ms. Thompson, in relation to the soup kitchen under a question to clarify, and it follows, Your Worship, just to indicate the approach of Your Worship. It's at page 163 of the record. Your Worship says at line 16. Okay, let me leave that. I have only 2 aspects left, no few in fact. Because if I had it before the time, it may have been a different story. The other issue, not an issue, but if you can explain. I think we're going in a circle of a radius of 5 kilometers on each side of the court building. We're going to find about 4, 5, 6 soup kitchens. So, and this soup kitchen is specifically to the area Mr. Malema is coming from. Ms. Thompson says, correct, Your Worship. The court says, so that is, what value must the court attach to that? Because I read it is from donations. Ms. Thompson says, part of, yes. And through the facilitation of the involvement of the accused, Your Worship, so Your Worship says, say it will continue. She says, it will continue most likely, yes. The court says, okay, so there's nothing special about the soup kitchen. Ms. Thompson says, there is. Then Your Worship says, except that he may want to be very thankful that people are being served a meal that is outstanding. Ms. Thompson says, yes, Your Worship, and it was mentioned as part of the consideration in terms of the risk of reoffence. So the point we're making, Your Worship, is Your Worship undermined with respect the role that the accused makes to society. Put quite differently, Your Worship, neither, to my knowledge, does Your Worship or anybody else in this court have the right to claim that they started or initiated a soup kitchen, but Your Worship belittled that approach by saying there's so many of them, they don't need him, whereas it was he who initiated it. So I needed to make that point. Turning to a more detailed list of what Your Worship had dealt with today. At the outset, Your Worship foresaw an application for leave to appeal. And Your Worship said, as to the firearm received from TSS, I dealt with this in my judgment. It will be an aspect for leave to appeal in the merits. There's no such finality in my judgment. This will rest until the leave to appeal. So it's quite clear with respect, Your Worship, that you envisage that there be an application for leave to appeal, and that, with respect, permeated your judgment on sentence. When it comes to aggravating circumstances, Your Worship, you said that Advocate Sees had highlighted and submitted that a custodial sentence was a normal, was the right sentence, because this was deliberate and executed with precision. And once again, Your Worship said these merits will be dealt with when we reach that point. So what we submit to Your Worship is it was always envisaged by Your Worship that there would be an application for leave to appeal, and that this sentence bears that out. Your Worship also dealt with the accused being in a position of trust. Now, when we refer to a position of trust, Your Worship is ordinarily a person who's an employee who looks after money or assets on behalf of somebody else. It doesn't cover the situation dealt with in this matter. And we would never ever argue that there's an absence of accountability and a breach of trust. But all of this, Your Worship, will come to the final quote that I'll address Your Worship on before I make my conclusion. And that's to the effect that Madam Justice is going to be blind and deaf, Your Worship, not have regard to the actual specifics of the person when sentencing in the manner that Your Worship did so here. Now, Your Worship also asked the following in your sentence. You said, the event was planned, the accused said so. I stand corrected on this aspect. It is the fifth celebration, first of its kind, and I was told that it is a well-established tradition. She said, Your Worship said, I'm unsure about this. Now, Your Worship could have clarified that. The evidence was there, but to do so in your sentence, you say is a misdirection. Your Worship went further to say it was planned, the whole event was planned and ended up in offences being committed. That can't be true. Now, with respect, we say it's a self-defeating argument, because if one says it was planned, then one must take into account that having been planned, there were no injuries, there were no damages, nothing untoward happened to anybody, and nobody expressed any fear. But that doesn't find any place in Your Worship's judgment on sentence with respect. And Your Worship then referred to the term of celebratory shots as an instance of sugarcoating, nothing more, nothing less. And we say in that regard, Your Worship erred, because it's Your Worship's finding as well, as part of Your Worship's questioning of Ms. Thompson, that if it's my birthday, can I go down the street and start shooting? And she said no. He said, well, aren't those celebratory shots? So the court knew all along that it was dealing with the celebratory shots.
That in so many words, it's not a question of interpretation. Your words in this message conveys that you know that the CFO has a list that he got, and it's a list of the CIC, in brackets Juju. You know that the CFO has that list, and what you are doing with your message is saying to Sergeant Nkosi, the CFO should compare that list, which you know he has from the CIC, compare it with this list that you say was given to you by Mnisi and Sipo. That's what your message is conveying.
No, Commissioner. Sipo and Mnisi came to me and said we have a list from the CIC that we have given to the CFO. I'm saying verify if this is the same.
Yeah, but your message doesn't say the CFO must confirm that the list he got from Sipo and Mnisi, he should compare them, that it is the same as the one that they gave you, the same people gave to you. That's not what you're conveying. You are clearly conveying that the CFO is sitting with a list that he got from the CIC. That's what your message says.
That's what I learned from Sipo and Mnisi, Commissioner.
Right. Thank you.
A few answers back, you said you don't communicate through WhatsApp chats only. You also talk. Who are you referring to? Who would you talk to?
I called Sergeant Nkosi to explain, to say I was with these two individuals that I grew with.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to know who you were referring to. Yes, Mr. Chaskalson.
Well, why did you want to know if Mnisi and Sipo?
Yes.
You said in your message to Sergeant Nkosi, please check with Mfowethu, please check with the CFO, if it's the same with his from CIC Juju. So you thought that the CFO would have a list of EFF companies from Mr. Malema.
I never thought. They said they were from the CFO. They said they gave this list to the CFO.
But then why, sorry, when you refer to CIC Juju, are you referring to Mr. Malema?
That's what I wanted to check, because that's what they said.
They said what?
They said that they are working with Mr. Malema, these people, only to find it was not true. They were lying.
But what you say is check with them for where to, check with the CFO if it's the same with his from CIC Juju, which is a reference to Mr. Malema. So you are saying check with the CFO if it's the same with a list that the CFO got from Mr. Malema. Is that not what you're saying?
No, that's not correct.
What are you saying then?
I'm saying they said they give the same to the CFO, so I'm saying he must verify if this is the same.
But that's not what you say in the message. What you say in the message is please check with Mfowethu if it's the same with his from CIC Juju.
Much as I'm saying that's not what the message said. The message was saying check if this is the same. That's what they said. They gave the CFO the same list.
But then why mention from CIC Juju in the message? Why draw Mr. Malema into this at all?
That's what they said. They gave the CFO the same.
Yes, but did they say they went to...
They are saying they are from CIC Juju, so much as I say check.
Sorry, they're saying?
They said they are from the CIC. The SIPO and Mnisi claim to be, bidding for the CIC Juju.
Yes, SIPO and Mnisi were chances. They were saying they were bidding for the EFF.
Yes.
They weren't. As a matter of fact, you later established they weren't.
Yes. But
then why mention Mr. Malema in this message? Because what you say is check with the CFO, Mfowethu, if it's the same with his from CIC Juju.
Much as I'm saying, they said that they are from the CIC Juju, much as I mentioned it here.
Dhlamini, that's not what you are saying in the email. You may have meant that, but that's not what the chat says. Sorry, not the email.
Yes, much as I'm saying, writing a message might not mean what you actually want to translate, but that's what I meant.
And you don't mention Mnisi and SIPO at all in this chat?
Yes, I did not mention them here.
So why do you mention Mr. Malema? Why do you not say, check if the list he has is the same one from Mnisi and SIPO?
They claim to be coming from the CIC.
But that's not what you are saying here. You're not saying they are claiming.
I wanted to be clear so that when he verifies, he says, remember that we are not only speaking on messages only. I also called to say this is the situation. Explain in detail. The message will not capture everything, Commissioner.
Deputy Commissioner, what the message does capture is that you know the CFO to have a list from the CIC. That's what your message conveys.
Yes.
You know him to have a list from the CIC. That's
from SIPO and Mnisi.
No, that's not what your message says. That's not what is captured in your message. Your message captures that you know that the CFO has a list from the CIC, and you are asking Sergeant Nkosi that the CIC should look at that list, which he has from the CIC, and compare it with the list that you say came to you from Mnisi and SIPO. That's what you're doing. There are two different lists.
Commissioner, Mnisi and SIPO.
Oh, sorry, the CFO should... Okay, let me start. I don't want to be misunderstood. Let me start. Your message
And there we see those 4 directorates: Management and Administrative Support, Police Logistics Support, Administration Bureau, and Internal Affairs. And very briefly, can you just describe to me what each of these directorates is responsible for? I'm not looking for much detail, but just broadly.
Thanks, SC. I think I've done it previously when I was reading my statement to the commissioners on pertinent matters that affected this commission, but I'll do it again briefly for you. When we come to management and admin support, that's MAS, and that's where it deals, with issues of finance, issues of HR, issues of, OHS, issues, of performance management and so forth. In brief, that's where they deal with. Project management, as I indicated, they deal with issues of contract management, assisting divisions with bid specifications, with issues of ensuring that, tenders get advertised. As soon as they are awarded, then they draft, SLA, assisting various divisions to ensure that SLAs are in place in order to assist, accounts payable, that SLA should be in place, loaded on SAP, contracts are in place, loaded in SAP, so that when payments get done, they can be sure that there's a contract for such a payment and so forth. And also, at the beginning of the financial year, you could have picked it up that, if you are not in the city, you might not specifically, you might confuse the processes. Like when the CFO was here, he outlined the question of from receiving an invoice, creating, POs and so forth. He started it on the second step, which create an assumption that in the city of Tshwane you work before a PO gets generated, while it's not the case, because each and every financial year, at the beginning of the financial year, the finance section, accounts payable, once the budget gets loaded, they create requisitions, they create POs. I think I've given an example. For instance, we have a uniform tender. They'll create POs at the beginning of the financial year. Give to company B to say we need 500 trousers or 1,000 trousers. Company B, September comes and say we can only produce 500. They deliver 500 trousers, they deliver an invoice. Then you start now, create a requisition again, you create a PO for the quantities that have been delivered. You have a PO already for the entire financial year. I've given an example with South African Post Office to say, we don't know how many infringement notices will be issued. So we create a PO for the entire year that debit against that PO as we receive an invoice. So you can't work in the city without a purchase order. But the CFO started it in the middle when they are going to pay. So it creates an impression as if you start by working, giving an invoice, then we create a PO. So I just wanted...
I appreciate that clarification, because I also was quite confused by what the CFO said in that regard, because he seemed to be suggesting that the PO only gets issued after the work is done. And that's incorrect, is it not? No, he started the process when, work has been delivered, they come with an invoice. I'm giving an example with the uniform. Yes. You create a PO for 1,000 trousers to be delivered. The supplier can only manufacture 500. So when he comes and delivers 500, they certify the invoice again. So, and we create a requisition and a PO for 500. We paid it. But the PO has been created for the entire
year on those aspects. So for South African Post Services, because our budget is segmented in quarters and so forth, we create for the entire year. As soon as we receive an invoice, because we're not sure how many infringement notices are they gonna post, what will be the cost of that. So as soon as they've posted, they are sure, we verify against what they've posted and the invoice. Then it start that process again. So it's twofold.
Can you explain that using the security contract?
Yes.
Just explain it so that we understand.
The security contract, because we know it's a contract, there are figures in that contract on a monthly basis. We create, requisition and POs, same applies. But for instance, let me take for demolition, a supplier for red ends. He demolished shacks as and when there are invasions and so forth. We're not aware how many shacks will be demolished. Same applies, we create POs for the entire period. So it works against, it debit against those POs. So as soon as we receive an invoice, we do a requisition again, we do a PO of the exact figure of an invoice that will debit against that.
So in a sense, the PO is upfront.
It's upfront.
And that's not what the CFO said, and that's what we tried to contradict him on. In fact, yesterday, one of Major Phiri's annexures also contradicted what the CFO said. I think it was the very last bullet of that annexure. Unfortunately, I don't remember which one it was. Do you perhaps remember, Mr. Musigidi? But do you remember the annexure I'm referring to? Pity we can't identify it, but we did not raise it specifically with Major Phiri. It didn't really